agenda is Resolution 6322. That's a resolution to appropriate $16,000 in the Utilities Collection Fund 7006. Who's here from Utilities? Hi.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Hintz, the superintendent for utilities. And what we're asking for is $16,000. We have a retirement payout that's going to be, if he were to retire right now, be $4,800. He was supposed to retire in January, and due to our system, he's graciously kept on with us, so that's why we weren't anticipating this. And but the funds, we plan on them coming over from the carryover, so they will not affect our service departments. And this overtime is due to the preparation and implementation of our new software. So, and 3 employees took payout instead of comp time, so which they normally take comp time, but they wanted paid for it, so we were trying to pay them out, so, or did.
Okay, so the 11.2 in overtime and 4,800
Yes.
in retirement?
And I'm hoping we won't need all of that,
Sure.
but I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Well, no, if you don't, it will revert back.
Yeah.
But the actual overtime was 11.8.
Yes.
And my question is, do you anticipate any additional overtime associated with, kind of getting it, while you maybe have implementation complete,
We
I
have,
live this in my world, so, in my life, so.
sure, yeah, we have reduced it tremendously. We are having a little bit of overtime here and there as time needs, but it's not anything like it was a month to 6 weeks ago.
Well, my question is, to save you a trip back here another time, do you anticipate needing more than what you're asking for today to get you through to the end of the year?
No, I do not.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Mrs. Hintz? Well, I appreciate you coming in and giving us an explanation. There's no rush to get this thing. I mean, you have enough money, I assume, in the budgeted monies to pay bills at this point, right?
I think we need as soon as possible.
Well, I'm asking the auditor.
Well, I was just asking her what her allowance, so if you could suspend, or
Okay.
that would be so we can get people that need their overtime paid.
Oh, I see. You don't think you have enough in the,
Yeah, she's kind of blown through what she already had, so she needs this to continue if she needs to pay people.
okay. And again, so then the question again is, you sure you have enough to get through the end of the year?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Okay. All right. And I ask if anyone, hey?
Mark that down.
That's right. Yeah, because I will make you come back and ask for more if you have to. Well, I mean, you'll do it by legislation, but I'll make you show up.
You've asked her how many times I've asked
Sure.
about it, but anyway.
Sure. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
All right.
Well, seeing no questions, there'll be no, and Corey, if we do need it to kind of get things in balance,
Yes,
then
so we
we'll
can
go
make
ahead.
sure we get them paid on payroll if she needs to pay them.
Perfect. We will ask for suspension on that. And Mrs. Kreitzer, the second on that?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. All right, so we will suspend on, and I'll need to add that to that. Is it on there already?
No, it is not.
Okay. All right. Give me a moment. What is it, 63? Okay. All right, very good. So suspension on 6322. All right, next item I have is 6422, and that's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project. That's going to be a recurring theme tonight. Mr. James.
Hopefully it won't be my show completely, but I would like to invite Mr. Stephen Wellstead to the podium. As he's coming up there, I also handed out copies of an email that he sent out to all of the council members explaining some of this, but I'm not going to steal any of his thunder. I'm going to let him go for it.
Thanks, Tom. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, this first one here, 6422, is pretty simple, just asking for authorization to advertise for bids. We are nearing the end of the design on this one, nearing 90%, and the plan is to bid in June, as of now, mid-June, for an opening in early August. So, and the only thing really I'll add is, as we have with other recent legislation, we're going to do a separate piece of legislation to enter into contract once we get closer to the bids and get an idea of what the numbers are out there.
Any questions for Mr. Wellstead? Mr. James?
We are going to ask for 3 readings on this, and Ms. Teeter will be my second.
Very good. Before we get into other things, Stephen, I sent you a note last week. I don't know if you saw that email, missed it, or you're waiting to respond to it.
Regarding the complaint
question.
on Independence,
Yeah.
I am aware of it. Sorry, I didn't tell you,
No,
but
no, that's
I'm
okay.
waiting. I want to talk to Mitch, city engineer, Mitch Noland.
Sure.
Hope to do that tomorrow, but I will have a response for you and the rest.
Yeah, no, I just
this
want to make
week
sure you
for
didn't miss it.
I did, yes, thank you.
You
Yes.
normally respond quickly and.
Yes,
so,
yes.
But that's fine. All right.
Apologies for not
No.
acknowledging receipt of that.
I just want to make sure you got it
Good,
more than
yeah.
anything else. All right, moving on. So, back to 64. We are 3 readings on that with Mrs. Teener as the second. Next item is 6522. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for various construction administration services for the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project. Again, coming through water pollution. Mr. James.
And once again, I'll yield some time to Mr. Stephen Wellstead for a little more information.
So yeah, again, as we're nearing design, looking towards construction, of course, our design engineer, Arcadis, we will want to retain their services for construction administration services, various things, general administration, inspection, programming, operation and maintenance, record drawings. They help with all of these throughout the construction period, which will be a couple years, and there is a lot involved, so it is a pretty big number. As I believe I noted in the legislation, the number they gave us a couple months ago, or about a month ago, sorry, was 5.9 million is what they had estimated at that time. We typically do like to have a little flexibility in there, so this legislation currently asks for authorization up to 6.5 million, which would allow us, again, a little flexibility in case unexpected issues come up during construction, and we do need to utilize some more of their services beyond what they've originally budgeted. So that's what we're looking for there. And again, I will note, as specified in the contract, or in the legislation, sorry, that these costs are being paid through, they will be included on the loan we have through Ohio EPA, their water supply revolving loan account program. So what we do is essentially we will pay up front the initial cost, but then I can turn right around and submit those for reimbursement. So essentially we'll have money going out and money coming in right away. That will cover the cost during construction, and then that total cost will be included in the loan that we'll pay over the 20-year term.
Okay. What's your pleasure?
First of all, is there any questions? Anybody ask? Okay. This can go 3 readings, and I will request Mr. Matlin to second that.
Okay, 3 readings and a second by Mr. Matlin on 6522. I have a different question, and I don't know if it's related to which piece it's related to, but you mentioned I think in your email about Arcadis, but you also mentioned Malcolm Perney, and maybe it's more of a question for Mike. I know we used Malcolm Perney a lot in the past, but they seem to kind of go away from our work. Is there a reason for that? Oh, they are now Arcadis.
Yes.
Well, that explains it.
Yes.
Thank you. See,
Yeah, a
I've
lot
been
of the
around here
folks
too
that were
long.
with Malcolm Perney years ago are still with Arcadis now. They were just bought out and known as Arcadis now. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, because
yes.
they always, again, we used them all the time, and then all of a sudden, gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Perfect. Great answer. All right, moving on. Resolution 6622, that's a resolution to amend permanent resolution 5221, which approved the engineering services for the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project, not to exceed $2.2 million. Again, coming through water pollution. Mr. James.
Thank you, Chairman Stoughton. Before I have Stephen say anything, a couple things to keep in mind, that on any magnitude of the project of this magnitude, even though we build a plant similar to that on the South Water plant, there's been a lot of changes that have taken place over the last 20-plus years. And we've learned a whole lot of things, better things now, on how and better ways to run plants and more efficiently. And that's why we're going to be asking for these additional funds on the front end, because it's very important that we do everything right at the onset of this before we have to go at the tail end and a whole lot of change orders. So, having said that, Stephen, go for it.
Thank you. So again, related to the design of the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project there. So last year you approved legislation for a contract up to $2.2 million for the design of this project for various reasons. We've run through those funds, or at least we will here by early next month. And that's what this legislation is coming here, is to amend that authorization to increase it from 2.2 to 2.9 million. Now, obviously that's a very big, we're talking 30% increase, so that's pretty big in terms of the scope of where the contract originally was, and what we're asking for now. So I did have our engineer give what I hope was a detailed description and kind of a list of all the challenges and changes and issues that have popped up during the design process that have led to them spending more hours on this than they originally budgeted. And as noted, I've included that in the email I sent you previously. You have a copy of which in front of you. So yeah, again, we're looking for that authorization to be increased there. Again, want to reiterate or identify again that the major increase here is due to those 4 new wells that are part of construction here. Initially, we were anticipating we'd be able to utilize some of the existing wells we have on site, but we found out throughout design that based on the condition and the expected capacity of those and the fact that the original well field, due to its age, had never been approved by Ohio EPA and gone through that process. So to utilize existing wells, we would have had to make modifications to them and gone through Ohio EPA's permitting process. And so instead of utilizing some older wells and going through that process, we determined it would make more sense operations going forward to have 4 brand new wells as opposed to, again, more than 4 old wells. And that change was a big reason why we are in the situation we are in now. So again, I'd be happy to address any questions you have about any of those specific items, but that was the big one, I think, that led to us needing this increase in design cost. And as Tom alluded to, part of it as well is we've tried to stay work with them very closely here, and we have spent a lot of time. Division of Water, Darren and his folks have spent a lot of time, and we've had a lot of meetings beyond what they originally anticipated. But again, as noted, we're trying to learn the lessons from the South plant and take what issues we had there and try to make sure, hopefully, we don't have those issues here, and make sure that we do our best to give the water folks a plant that they is easy for them to operate, and again, something that they'll be able to work with for decades into the future. So
Questions?
I think that's all I have to say now.
You look like you're ready.
I do. I have a quick question.
Sure.
This is
So
great.
it sounds like part of the reason that we can't use the old wells is because they weren't kept up or something with the well fields from Ohio EPA. So do we have a plan in place that for the future of these new wells, we will have that? So in the future, if we have to have, upgrades to the water plant, we could potentially reuse these in the future? And we wouldn't need new ones 20 years from now?
Darren, I don't know if you'd be able to address that. I think,
These wells go back to like 1932.
Oh.
When the original plant was designed, and they've been rehabbed through the years. New casing, they have double case lines, they've got screens inside screens, so when you try to clean them, they don't produce the quantity of water that we need. Plus, these lines has been in service so long that half the diameter is encrusted with iron and manganese. The wells herself, before we had check valves are on the horizontal, as the water comes up and shoots over horizontally in the ground. Every time we'd start a well and turn it on, all the water would get oxidized, and iron would just build up on them pipes. Through the years, we've got so much iron in there. For us to start our new plant up, we would have there's so much iron coming into our plant on this new plant with the membranes, it would not be good. Plus, they're just so old and decrepit, they're really not usable anymore.
you have an expectation what the life of these new wells would be?
Well, we've actually designed these new wells a lot better. We've actually did all stainless steel screens and stainless steel liners all the way up in casing. So we should never have rotting of the casing or the screen. So these wells should outlive the youngest person, probably your youngest, your kids.
Kids.
Exactly. Because we see some of the problems we have now, and we didn't want people to look back on us and say, why didn't you do this and do things right? So we're spending a little bit of money at the beginning, but we're going to save a lot of money in the end. So that was a good question you had. We really want to make this a great plant, and for the operation and maintenance is something that's affordable and isn't going to just keep just nickel and diming us.
So let me help you out here. Remember the movie My Cousin Vinny, when he makes a really, a really good objection,
Yeah,
and then he gets overruled?
Yeah.
That's a nice way for him to say hard no on
yeah,
that.
fair.
All right.
I wish I would have brought some pictures, or we could have emailed them out to you and you wouldn't have had any questions. I mean, these 8-inch lines are probably down to 4-inch. Then every time we change velocities and increase and turn more wells on at one time, if you'd come to my plant, it just kind of brings a big slug of iron into my plant. And we've got processes in the new design of the new plant that we're gonna actually be able to flush the line with higher velocities and keep them lines cleaned out. So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was a good
additional
question.
Yeah, with that being
information.
said, of course, again, we're looking, I think, skipping ahead here, we're looking at 2 readings for this, but if you want to see anything, again, if Darren or I myself could provide anything to answer that or any other questions, certainly in the meantime, in the next couple of weeks, we'd be happy to do that.
I should probably just come visit the plant.
yeah, you're more than welcome, yeah, any of you guys.
Oh, yeah, I know, I'm asking for other questions. Yeah, Mrs. Tina.
So I don't know if anybody has lately, but I would go look at the plant. We did lots of uses for duct tape. There's-
I was hoping you wouldn't tell us.
Hey. But really, people, we need to go look. And I said something about him doing a presentation maybe of some sort we could put online on the city website to kind of show the public that, it's just not this fancy Taj Mahal everybody calls it. There's a lot that goes in there
We're,
that's.
sorry, Ms. Tina, we're not allowed by security issues
Yeah.
to show
Okay.
the workings of water supply ever since the terrorist
Well, I
acts.
didn't know.
And,
Okay,
yeah,
well, I just-
I think it would be really interesting.
Because
though.
then people would at least know that that place just isn't a building because anytime we went, it was for the
Public records.
public records thing upstairs, so, but
Wish
you
we
didn't
could
know
do
that
that,
either
but we can't.
because you agreed with it, so, to do it.
Other questions? All right, first of all, and finally, thank you for this.
Yeah,
That
of
was-
course.
That was very
absolutely.
helpful.
Good, yeah.
I appreciate that. All right, Mr. James.
If any of you choose to, council members choose to go and get a tour with Mr. Darren Drum, I'm sure he can give you much more detail than he was able to give us tonight. I'm
I
not.
think he's making fun of you. That's what I think.
But it was all good information. Yes, we would like to do this in 2 readings, and Ms. Tina will be my second, please.
All right, we will go 2 readings with Mrs. Teener on a second. Thank you both. We
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you all.
All right, next item I have is Resolution 6722. That's a resolution to appropriate in the general fund 1001 and issue a then and now certificate for the Corpo federal grant received by the city. This is coming to Economic Development. Mr. McDaniel.
Yes, when we get to the regular meeting, I'm going to ask Mr. Schoonover to sponsor this and have you second it. But this is regarding the motion you'll be making later. But this is the Corpo funding that we discussed in detail at our last meeting, and we had members of the public here regarding the South Broad Street, the Gateway Project, and the award we got from the Central Ohio Regional Planning Commission, some federal money available to us to upgrade that area, and this is an opportunity that really doesn't come along very often. So we're looking at accepting those funds from Corpo, and then we have a 20% match requirement in order to utilize those funds. We are going to ask for suspension tonight, and that's because we have an opportunity to likely, or at least possibly get that done this calendar year versus next. And that's because we already have projects going on in the area, and we may be able to do something with the current vendor who's in town working at the time.
Awesome. That's great. Questions? Any issue with suspension around the table? Seeing none, we will ask suspension for 6722. Thank you, Don. All right, moving on. Next item is 6822. That's a resolution to appropriate in the general fund for unemployment expense. This is coming through the Safety Committee. Mr. Matlin.
Yes, this was a fire department employee that no longer works at the fire department and has applied for unemployment. As you know, in the budgets for the year, they don't put any unemployment money in the budget. This is the maximum amount that might be awarded if they get it. As of last week, talking to the service director, they have not been awarded any. but this is just in case that they do get awarded money. I'd rather not have specifics out. If we want to have a executive session for this to talk about specifics, which I don't think there's a need for it. This is just the assistant chief in the back there, Chief Mapp, and if somebody had questions for him or us.
I think this,
We're going to try to ask for suspension tonight so they can get the money in the budget.
I think it's pretty straightforward, and we don't know that they, like you said, they haven't been awarded this, but this is the potential top line.
Yes.
Okay. Questions for Service Safety Director or the Assistant Chief? All right, we'll ask for suspension on 6822, and your second is?
Mr. Ayler.
Mr. Ayler. All right, perfect. So suspension on 6822. Thank you, Jack. Next item I have is Resolution 6922. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to purchase a jet vac truck for use by the Water Pollution Control Department. Again, coming through water pollution, Mr. James.
I would like to invite Superintendent Nixon to the podium. One thing to keep in mind, these kind of units are not sitting on a shelf somewhere, and they're very, very long lead items, but please go ahead there, Mike.
I guess I'll join the water wastewater spending money theme. Nothing cheap about this. This is our largest of the two jet vacs we have to maintain our sanitary sewer collection system. This is a tandem axle. It cleans the larger diameter sewers as well as the 8-inch. But we are looking to replace this. I didn't know I was going to be able to do it this year because with the supply chain issues, getting cooperative purchasing agreements finalized have been almost impossible. So the vendor let me know he's got one cabin chassis left that hasn't been spoken for, and he can build us a truck, and he's anticipating either or of the two cooperative purchasing programs, either Sourcewell or the Ohio State term schedule to come out hopefully in the next week. So with that, we'll be able to purchase this truck. It should be less than the $550,000. And once I give them the approval and they get it in the system, we're hoping to see it October, November-ish to be built. So if possible, I'd like to get this passed sooner rather than later, but if you want to go 2 readings, we'll keep our fingers crossed that cabin chassis doesn't sell. They have the Freightliner available, and they have no idea when they'll get any more Freightliners, and then they say it's months to get an international or any other type of cabin chassis. So I'd like to make sure this gets done this year to make sure we have a good solid truck. It gets used hard every day because it's jetting and vacuuming the sewer system. And the older one, to give you some idea, after 5 years, if you were to lease one, they depreciate out 42%. And this one's a 2010 model, and it's usually about 2.5% a year after that. So it's nearly fully depreciated out, getting close, and it is starting to nickel and dime us some. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and get this purchase authorized and move forward. We typically keep them 12, 13 years in the past and replace them at that time.
So
Then
is
the
this
old one, we hope to, we're getting it appraised, getting a trade-in value for it. And the Division of Water has been doing a lot of hydro excavating, or we've been doing a lot of hydro excavating with that truck for them. We'd like to sell it to them at the trade-in value so they have a hydro excavator, which won't be used quite as hard as sewer cleaning jobs and won't be as frequent. So that's the plan for the existing truck. No sense trading it in and having somebody else make more money on it with another city department could utilize it.
Yes.
questions? Yeah, your last comment was a question I was gonna have, is what are you doing with the old one? All right, what's your pleasure, Mr. James?
Actually, I'm going to respectfully ask for suspension tonight so we get a chance to get that one last unit they've got encumbered as quickly as we can. It's also a unit, they've got a similar one, it's a Freightliner similar to what we already have. The vacuum unit itself and jetting unit is similar to what we already have. So I am going to respectfully ask for suspension tonight.
That's another Vector brand. It's pretty much the same truck we have now with a couple more features that make it a little safer.
Any other questions or issue with suspension?
And I'm gonna ask Mr. Matlin to second that for us.
All right, so we will ask for suspension, and Mr. Matlin will second. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, moving on. Do we have any departmental updates this evening? I knew he was here for a reason.
Didn't break something again, did he?
I don't know. Ask him.
Did you break something?
Look at you, he walks up.
Did you break something?
Stuff breaks every day. Just come down.
But did you break it?
No, I never break it.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to come up. I wasn't here for the first reading of the wheel loader, so I thought maybe there would be some questions, so I thought I'd come up and entertain those and kind of give a brief overview. So as I've talked to everybody, we're looking at a new transfer station. We actually have the design in the works currently. Hopefully within the next month, all of those plans are going to be done. Total project, hopefully that's a $1.15 million project. We'll talk more obviously about that later because we'll need the support and go through that piece. But as I was thinking about moving forward, and just like Mike said, we've the last time I was here, it was for a garbage truck that we thought we could have in 90 days. Well, that was June of last year. Well, I finally saw that garbage truck February of this year. So we just can't get a hold of things, as all the department heads know. So as I was thinking, weirdest times when you're sleeping, you wake up like, wait a minute. The new transfer station is going to be working off of a wheel loader system. So all the trash, instead of now going in a pit that is also, a danger concern for public coming in. There's a 12-foot pit there that people have fallen into. Luckily, I broke everything, but I haven't had anybody fall in the pit yet. Paul got to experience that. But the new transfer will be a flat tipping floor. Everybody will back in, dump onto the floor. Then this loader will scoop up the refuse, take it over to, there'll be a floor that'll be like a 5-foot level difference so you can sort of see in the top of the trailers, and we'll top load those into the trailers. So, but I was thinking, wait a minute, we're going to hopefully be able to, by this time next year, potentially be in that new transfer. And if I don't get a wheel loader ordered, we're not going to have any way to load any of that trash. So that's what this is for. We do have a second one. We do have one that we just replaced. It's used for compost. Everybody likes the yard waste and the compost, and that's what that unit's used for. The one we had was a 96 model, so I did upgrade it, and the whole thought process of that, because right now when something breaks in the transfers, you all get to hear and see our post. We got to direct haul or figure out something. Well, now I'll have that second loader, so we'll be able to just pull the other loader out of the barn, and we're back in business loading trailers.
Question for Mr. Fowler. Anyone want to do a little trash talking?
Yeah.
All right, seeing none. Thank you, Sean.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
the update. Yes, sir.
So some of you might notice if you drove State Route 37 there by the fairgrounds over to Rising Park, we've got a mask arm over there. We're close to completing our on-demand ped crossing, which will be the yellow flashing lights, which you see down here downtown. And that'll be a good thing. It, hopefully it'll preserve some lives as they go down there. But I still recommend that when you push that button and that yellow light flashes, that you still look to the left and right and make sure I can make it across that street in the time frame. They should stop. People really should be stopping when those lights do turn yellow, but we do see sometimes they're not obeying the law that they're supposed to stop. But we're looking forward to seeing that completed.
Put cameras on them. Steve.
So you're talking about that, installing that. When's the one going to be replaced that was on Broad Street that got hit?
That's my question.
So that equipment's being ordered. Fortunately, by our investigation, we were able to get some funding from the insurance company, which I was very doubtful about. But that will be installed. We have been waiting longer for the one that's being on right now.
Okay, but
But
still,
we are
how long
intending
was-
to
When was
replace
that
that.
accident, though?
Huh?
When was that accident? I can't.
I can't remember. It was this winter sometime.
Oh, wow, took that long?
Yeah, it's been a while, but it's like everything else. But yeah, we have that slated. I'm grateful that we're gonna be able to put that back up. We would have put it up anyway, no matter what.
Well, I know, but it's
Right.
just kind of, it's seeing people kind of dodging across because they're trying
Yes.
to.
It's
Make
unfortunate that semi truck took that out and kept driving, but the company that delivered it and was there is making us whole, so I'm grateful for that.
So is there a time limit that I can tell the people? Is it a couple weeks?
I
Have we
don't have a
checked on
time
it?
limit for you tonight.
See, okay.
I will definitely look up to it. I got a meeting later this week, and I'll see if somebody can get that time frame back to you.
Okay, because school's still on and that, so it's
Yes.
still kind of a
Yes.
concern.
All right, further departmental updates. Departmental updates gone. All right, we'll move on to President Uhl for tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We still have temporary ordinance 16-22 to work through, an ordinance to accept property on Barron's Court coming through Public Works. Mr. Schoonover.
Yes, thank you. So 1974, we're just fixing the issue from then, where public right-of-way wasn't dedicated for this parcel, and the property owners are looking to sell their property. So the title insurance and title company needs this handled so they can get their property sold. So we're gonna ask for suspension so they can do that. We can fix that mishap from 1974.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Schoonover? Suspension tonight then, and who's your second?
Yes, suspension, and Mr. James be my second.
Okay, Mr. James, very good.
Yes.
The only other thing to address tonight is the fact that the mayor is not available, and there are multiple pieces that are needed for suspension, including temporary resolutions 60, 63, 67, 68, 69, and temporary ordinance 16-22. Because of that, we'll be asking for a motion to suspend the rules and move all of those to the very beginning of the reading of resolutions so that we can pass the chair to Mr. McDaniel. He can lead the meeting, and then I can sign off on those in the absence of the mayor so that they can become effective and move forward. So that will be happening right before we begin with third reading of resolutions. Other than that, I'll toss it back to the chairman.
Thank you. All right, are there any other items for finance? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second?
And we have a second. We are adjourned. It is, I think, 6:32. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at approximately 6:40.
Life is unpredictable. That's why estate planning is important. Estate planning provides you comfort and peace of mind knowing that you're taking care of your loved ones and ensuring your legacy lives on just as you envisioned. You lived a life that is beautifully and uniquely yours. You deserve an estate planning attorney who understands that and creates a plan as unique as you and in the best interest of your loved ones. You deserve the local, trusted, experienced attorneys at Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 888-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, connorinsuranceenagency.com.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
is wound up tonight. Good evening. Welcome to Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Father, we are thankful for this day and your many blessings. Thankful that you have seen fit to allow us to represent the people of Lancaster in these positions. May we do so with integrity tonight. May you bless us as we go about the work set before us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Here.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Here.
Mr. James?
Here.
Mr. Matlin?
Here.
Mr. McDaniel?
Here.
Mr. Schoonover?
Here.
Ms. Sitterly?
Here.
Mr. Stoughton?
Here.
And Mrs. Teener?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all 9 members of Lancaster City Council are in attendance this evening. Reading and disposing of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated April the 11th, 2022.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
Motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports of city officials.
Series of emails regarding the Water Pollution Control Committee meeting time change submitted by Mr. James. Email dated April 18th, 2022 regarding Water Pollution Control Committee meeting time change submitted by Superintendent Mike Nixon. Email dated April 18th, 2022 regarding Water Pollution Control Committee meeting time change submitted by Mayor David Scheffler. Email dated April 18th, 2022 regarding Water Pollution Control Committee time change submitted by Superintendent Darren Drum. Email dated April 18th, 2022 regarding Water Pollution Control Committee meeting time change submitted by Service Safety Director Paul Martin. Email dated April 18th, 2022 regarding the Water Pollution Control Committee time change submitted by North Plant Manager Michael Wickham. Email dated April 18th, 2022 regarding Economic Development Committee agenda submitted by Mr. McDaniel. Email dated April 19th, 2022 regarding Water Pollution Control Committee meeting time change submitted by Stormwater Manager Stephen Wellstead. Email dated April 19th, 2022 regarding the Water Pollution Control Committee meeting time change submitted by Environmental Engineer Denise Cruz. Series of emails dated April 21st, 2022 regarding Economic Development meetings submitted by Mr. McDaniel. Email dated April 25th, 2022 regarding the residents at 148 Marks Avenue submitted by Mr. James. And finally, an email dated April 25th, 2022 regarding the April 25th Finance Committee meeting agenda submitted by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive and file reports of city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications?
There are 3. An invitation to the Lancaster Fairfield County Chamber of Commerce Trade Show and Awards Ceremony for Thursday, May 12th, 2022. Invitation to the National Day of Prayer Breakfast, May 5th, 2022, submitted by Ann Woodruff. And finally, the notice to the Legislative Authority of a transfer of a liquor license from Downtown Bistro LLC, doing business as the Bistro, located at 123 North Broad Street, first floor basement and patio, excluding coffee shop, Lancaster, Ohio 43130, to Lancaster Downtown Bistro LLC, doing business as the Downtown Bistro, located at 123 North Broad Street, first floor basement and patio, excluding coffee shop, Lancaster, Ohio, submitted by the Ohio Division of Liquor Control.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the communications.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to receive and file communications. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Tonight we do have a special presentation. Stephanie Taylor with Habitat for Humanity is here today, and so as Ms. Taylor makes her way to the podium, she is going to provide for us an update of what is happening here in our areas. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Again, Stephanie Taylor, Habitat for Humanity of Southeast Ohio. I'm the Community Engagement Director for Fairfield County. I also cover Hocking. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk about what's happening here in the city of Lancaster. We are currently building at 925 South Broad Street. All 4 exterior walls went up this Saturday. And it's our first home since we've taken over the affiliate, but also the second home in Fairfield County since 2016. first one in the city of Lancaster since 2016. So it's a pretty big milestone, not only for us, but for what's going on in our community. There's a lot of partners that are involved in this, and one of those being the city of Lancaster Community Development, and several other business partners in our community, which we're very excited to have as part of that. We've done a lot of fun things on this build. We did a studathon, which included several other groups that are a little smaller within the community, including the Lancaster Rotary, the Kiwanians, and several other small business owners, realtors, Jay Matlin, Zach DeLeon, several others. So we're excited to see what's going to happen here. This is going to be the first of many, many homes that we plan to build, not only in Fairfield County, but in the city of Lancaster. And we have a great relationship with the Fairfield County Land Bank, where we've already somewhat land proposed out some different areas that are going to be used in the future. And one of the partnerships that will be beginning in the fall will be a partnership with the Fairfield Career Center. They'll be building homes for us at the school, and I believe the first one will go within the city of Lancaster. So that'll be 2 homes within within this year and 1 next year already. So that's really exciting. We're excited to include all the students that will be affected by that. They'll build the homes up to about 80 to 90%. And so that'll include about 200 to 250 students, depending on enrollment at that time. One of the things that we always need is help, because we are not government funded and we are very little grant funded. So how we build the homes as far as volunteers, financing, and advocacy is all coming from those in the community who like to get involved, from individuals that live here all the way to the businesses and, like I mentioned, the county, the city, and everybody in between. So if you're ever interested in learning more and wanting to get involved, you can just let me know. I'd love to talk more. Coffee, lunch, whatever. Sit in the park when it's beautiful, like it was today, until about 5 minutes ago. I'd be happy to do that. So I just want to give a quick update on those, and we've got lots of other things happening. This is like this much of all the things that are happening, not only in the city, but the county. So any questions for me?
That's great. Anyone have questions for Ms. Taylor? Ms. Teener?
I wanted to ask, so when you do these, do you have to go through, of course, and who pays for that? Your zoning permits, your building permits, and how does somebody finance something like that buys?
That's a great question. So we take care of all the funding. I'm the main fundraiser for all of our builds here in the county, and so by getting all the partners together, I have to raise about $100,000 to $120,000 to fund the home. Luckily, we have a great mayor and safety services director that is a great partner of ours as well, to help us navigate those partnerships on the permitting and what that looks like, and if there's ability for us to look at what's necessary and what's not necessary going on, and helping us cut some costs there. And then once we have it all financed, that pays for the build. And then every Habitat homeowner, that's a good indication, or the distinction I should make sure that I make, our homes are not built and then given away. Every single home becomes owned by the homeowner, and they pay a 0% 30-year mortgage with us. We are the bank, and they pay taxes and insurance as well. So that helps. We recoup that back over the next 30 years with that homeowner. So the nice thing is when they become homeowners, they are paying into the city taxes of the city of Lancaster. So that's helpful for our housing stock and our community here as well. So
Thank you.
absolutely.
Great. Anyone else have questions? Very good. Well, Ms. Taylor, thank you for being here, and thanks for the update. Let's show her our appreciation for coming tonight. All right, are there any petitions or memorials?
There are none to be presented.
During this time, Lancaster City Council sets time aside to allow the voters and taxpayers to address City Council on any item or issue they would like. Is there anyone who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? As I see someone approaching, I'll take this opportunity to remind you of the rules. The rules for this particular time are that you have 5 minutes to speak per the rules of council. In addition, no one will respond to you during this particular time, but may choose to do so at a later time during the meeting. With that, we'll ask that you state your name and address for the record, and then you can begin.
Good evening. It's nice to be before you again. It's been a minute since I've been here. Nice to see some familiar faces, and it's great to see some new ones here. What brings me here today is the Rolling Hills Storage Facility that's located up near Tarhee School in the River Valley Highlands. I know that many of you may think that this was water under the bridge, but however, that water's starting to ebb back. On December the 11th of 2018, Walter Beatty presented to Greenfield Township a rezoning of his acreage that he wanted to build storage facilities and have access to these storage facilities through the city streets of River Valley Highlands. According to the notes, the hearing minutes of that meeting, because I was not aware of it taking place, there wasn't a need for my radar to be on with regards to the township. I've learned a hard lesson that way. I have to rely on the minutes that took place prior to me being involved. However, there was many questions and answers that were taking place before the township approved it on that date, being December the 11th of 2018. To be brief, Mr. Walters said that he was looking to have 20 to 25 storage for RVs and 188 units indoor. My understanding is that he had met with the city government prior to this in April. The city wanted him to annex this property into the city of Lancaster, which he chose not to do, and he chose to do the route of gaining access through our city streets. My understanding also is that a city street cannot be accessed by a private owner. However, Mr. Beatty made an agreement with the township that he is indeed maintaining that street, and he alone, by paying $1 to the township over the next 10 years. That seems to be a loophole to me, and it should be of concern because River Valley Highlands is not the only neighborhood that routes into township areas. River Valley Highlands is a homeowner's neighborhood. And again, I know that you hear that, but the people who live there choose to live there and pay homeowner association fees. They agree to follow the restrictions of a homeowners association. And even though the city can supersede a homeowners association, we are definitely making that neighborhood look and remain the way it is because of those homeowners restrictions. In addition to River Valley Highlands, I just did a brief investigation into how many homeowners associations are in the city of Lancaster. I know that Misty Meadows is. I know that the Overlook is. And I know that those homeowners associations are all different from the one that's in River Valley Highlands. However, the city should really take a look at what they permit to take place in a neighborhood that is a homeowners association as opposed to neighborhoods which are not, because we do pay to live in that area. What is taking place now is, as I stated, originally Mr. Beatty met with the County Planning Commission and submitted his plans for these same 188 indoor storages and 20 to 25 outside RV storage. Since that time, and it wasn't started until 2020. Since that time, he had built 4 buildings to contain these 188 indoor storages. I apologize, I stutter a bit now. However, there are 7 buildings there now. There was a public hearing on April the 13th to where he wanted to open up his property right beside the school and extend the storage facility. Although there may not be anything that you may be able to do for the city, I'm more or less here to let you know that we will be attending that deferred meeting. And I spoke with the township today. There was a sign posted at said property stating that there was a hearing on the 13th. When I contacted the township, they go, oh, no, that was just a meeting. And I go, well, you know what? You put a notification on the property that it was indeed a hearing. No one returned my call with regards to was proper notification sent to the
Thank you very
homeowners
much,
who
Ms.
live
Burnside.
nearby?
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Just please, show up to the meeting Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. I'd appreciate any help from any council members that we can. And please pay attention.
Thank you. Your time
Ours
has
is not the
expired,
only
ma'am. Thank you.
neighborhood.
Is there anyone else who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? All right, well, thank you all for being here. Reports of standing committees.
I have 3. The IT Committee meeting dated February the 18th, 2022, submitted by Mrs. Teener. Water Pollution Control meeting dated April 13th, 2022, submitted by Mr. James. And finally, the Finance Committee meeting minutes dated April 25th, 2022, submitted by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports of special committees.
There are none to be presented.
We have no public hearings tonight, so we're going to move to the reading of resolutions. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that the Lancaster City Council suspend its rules and take exception to the normal order of business pursuant to Lancaster Codified Ordinance 11108 by reading and considering temporary resolutions 6022, 6322, 6722, 6822, and 6922, as well as temporary ordinance 1622 before the remainder of the legislation on tonight's agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules as Mr. Stoughton has just read. Would you like discussion, Mr. Stoughton?
Yes. Is it okay if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the reason for this, we are going to suspend the rules. We are going to remove Mr. Uhl from the chair. We're going to have the President Pro Tem, Mr. McDaniel, take the chair. Therefore, we can now act on all of the items that need suspended this evening. Typically, suspended legislation needs to be enacted quickly. Therefore, in the absence of the mayor tonight, President Uhl has the authority to sign as the mayor in that role tonight, hence the switching of the seats and handling all the suspended resolutions and ordinances before us this evening. Assuming that they all pass, then Mr. McDaniel will sign as the president of council, and Mr. Uhl will sign as the mayor of the city.
Thank you very much. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules carries 9-0. I now sacrifice the chair to President Pro Tem McDaniel.
Thank you. So we're going to begin a reading of resolutions as outlined in Mr. Stoughton's motion, beginning with the second reading of Resolution temporarily numbered 60-22.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to dispense with competitive bidding under the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program for the purchase of one wheel loader for use by the Sanitation Department, to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate with the County Auditor in the Sanitation Fund 6005, offered by Ms. Sitterly and seconded by Mr. Matlin.
Ms. Sitterly.
Yes, Mr. President Pro Temp, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 60-22.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 60-22. Discussion, Ms. Sitterly.
Mr. Fowler was kind enough to fill us in earlier at the finance meeting that they need to order it now in order to get it in time, so.
Okay. Any further discussion on 60-22? Motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Ms. Sitterly.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Temp. I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution temporarily numbered 60-22.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 60-22. Discussion, Ms. Sitterly.
Nothing further, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 60-22 passes 9-0. We'll now have first reading on 63-22. I think we
We're
added
taking them out of order,
63.
aren't we?
No, we can follow the order.
Oh, 63, pardon me.
63
I
was
did
added
pull-
as a result of
That's
a
my fault, I
request
did
to
not pull that
suspend.
one out. Give me 1 second here, please.
You're fine, I'm sorry.
No, it was my mistake. And I told Tom, we added this one. Okay, I apologize. Okay. A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the Utilities Collection Fund 7006, offered by Mr. Stoughton and seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of Resolution Temporary 6322, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 63-22. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We were asking for suspension on this tonight. We had overtime expenses in the, actually expenses around $11,200 above current budget amount. And then we also have $4,800 of a potential retirement payout. So the Utilities Collection Department Superintendent has asked to suspend the night to appropriate that money into her budget, as both those line items are exposed at the moment. So we're asking for suspension for a grand total of $16,000 from Utilities Collection Fund 7006.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record Resolution Temporary 6322, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 63-22. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Nothing further.
Any further discussion on the motion to pass 6322? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 63-22 passes 9-0. Next on the list here is 6722.
A resolution to increase receipts, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, amend the certificate with the county auditor and the general fund 1001 and LDOT Improvement Fund 3014, and approve any then and now certificates prior to the issuance of any purchase orders. Offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 6722.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 67-22. Mr. Schoonover.
Yeah, we discussed in finance, this suspension request is, we got some federal funds on, to do a makeover of South Broad Street. We're trying to speed that process up with our summer paving program this year. If we can get it out to bid with who already is in town vendor-wise, we can get it done this year versus waiting until next year. That's why we're asking for suspension.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 6722.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 6722. Mr. Schoonover.
Nothing further.
Any further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 6722 passes 9-0. 6822.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor and the general fund 1001. Offered by Mr. Matlin, seconded by Mr. Ayers.
Mr. Matlin.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 6822.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 68-22. Discussion, Mr. Matlin?
Yes, this is $11,500 to be put into a line item for the fire department just in case an employee that's not there anymore is awarded unemployment. This is the worst-case scenario if they do get awarded it. If they don't, then the money will come back and carry over.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. Matlin?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 6822.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 68-22. Discussion, Mr. Matlin.
Nothing further, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 68-22 passes 9-0. We'll now have first reading on 69-22.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to dispense with competitive bidding for a purchase of a jet vac truck and to amend their certificate of appropriations with the county auditor, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, increase receipts, and complete a fund transfer in the wastewater fund 6004 and in the wastewater utility replacement and improvement fund 6023, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Mallon.
Mr. James?
Thank you, President Pro Tem McDaniel. At this time, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 69-22.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporary numbered 69-22. Discussion, Mr. James?
Just briefly, to reiterate some of the things we discussed in the, our meeting for the finance, this is the opportunity to encumber a unit that is available now and will not be delivered and clear out until October, November this year, to replace another unit that's over 12 years old. And these units get used pretty hard every day. So that's why we're asking for suspension tonight.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. James?
Thank you, President Pro Tem McDaniel. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to cancel, pass, and gross and enter upon a written record temporary resolution numbered 69-22.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 69-22. Mr. James?
Nothing further, thank you.
Further discussion on motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 69-22 passes 9-0. We now have first reading on ordinance 1622.
An ordinance to accept property for the dedication of public right-of-way on Barron's Court and to declare an emergency, offered by Mr. Schoonover and seconded by Mr. James.
Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary ordinance 1622.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of ordinance temporarily numbered 1622. Discussion, Mr. Schoonover.
Yes, we're asking for suspension. This was, this piece, the property owners on Barron's Court are trying to sell their property, and in the process of that, we found out that dedication of right-of-way wasn't completed back in 1974, so we're cleaning that up, asking for suspension so they can sell their property.
Further discussion on motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Motion to suspend passes 9-0. Mr. Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 1622.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily numbered 16-22. Further discussion, Mr. Schoonover.
No, thank you.
Any other discussion on motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 1622 passes 9-0. I will turn the chair back over to President Old.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel, and well done. I get to do the easy part now.
Yes.
You've done all the hard work, so I appreciate it. All right, we will move back to the top of the agenda then. Oh, you got to move to put us back, Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion or move to that Lancaster City Council resume the normal order of business pursuant to Lancaster Codified Ordinance 1107 at this time, please.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to return to the regular order of business. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
We have returned to the regular order of business.
Thank you again, Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you.
We'll now jump to the top for the third reading of temporary resolution 56-22.
A resolution to authorize alternative composition of Lancaster City Council pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 731.01B. Offered by Mrs. Kreitz, seconded by Ms. Teener.
Mrs. Kreitz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council place on the table resolution temporarily numbered 56-22.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place upon the table temporary resolution 5622. A motion to table is undebatable. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Sitterly?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 56-22 has been laid upon the table. We have second reading on temporary resolution 62-22.
A resolution to amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations with the county auditor, appropriate from the unencumbered balance, and increase receipts in the CDBG Federal Grant Fund 2073. Offered by Mr. McDaniel and seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. McDaniel.
This will be the second of three readings.
Second reading then on temporary resolution 62-22. We'll now move to the first reading of temporary resolution 64-22.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids for the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
This is the first of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 64-22. Temporary resolution 65-22.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for various construction administration services during the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Matlin.
Mr. James.
Once again, first of three readings.
First of three readings on temporary resolution 65-22. Temporary resolution 66-22.
A resolution to amend permanent resolution 52-21, authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for the design phase of the North Water Treatment Replacement Project. Offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
This is the first of two readings.
First of two readings on temporary resolution 66-22. Are there further resolutions to come before Lancaster City Council? If not, we have already dealt with the one ordinance on tonight's agenda. Is there any tabled legislation, other than one we just put on? So we'll move past that. Is there any unfinished business tonight? Ms. Teener?
Yes, I would like to address Mrs. Burnside on this. I went over Saturday to the area at River Valley. And just speaking with the gentleman, if you haven't been over there, go look at this. I mean, there's a corporation limit sign, and then it's a cul-de-sac, and right to the left, I know they were only supposed to build so many units, but clearly there was gonna be more units, because even right now, to the left of the cul-de-sac, there's an apron cut and a gate. There's a house right there. They were supposed to, I believe, put up trees and the screening and all that. That's not done. There's a house right there. They do those storage sheds right there. I mean, that's gonna be their backyard. I mean, the person that owns the house is gonna have to handle this. And the way this is, I even told the gentleman, I said, since it's so kind of a sketchy little area of where everything is, because you've got LPD, then you got Greenfield Township, which would be Sheriff's Department. I said, you see anything going on, you call the sheriff. However, these people, the amount of time I was there was about an hour, hour and a half. There was quite a bit of traffic coming in and out of that storage shed. There was, I guess, a guy that was working in there fixing bicycles. He had a little business going. Somebody else, I believe, was using it to sleep in. We've got a school there. And I just really think that we need to watch this neighborhood. I don't know why they don't make it go out to 158 and close that off. I'm serious. So, I mean, we really do need to do something here. I mean, I understand that is Greenfield Township, but, we need to protect our citizens too. And with that school there, and it's clear if you go out there, they have more plans than just to build those few storage units. I mean, it's pretty clear. So that's all I'm going to say on that. But please, the meeting's Wednesday night. I'm going. But can't think of anything else other than that. But that's all I need to say.
Yes, Mr. McDaniel.
I just want to say, I did attend the Greenfield Township meeting, and like Ms. Burnside stated, we as residents of Lancaster were not informed of the original meeting that took place in 2018. However, they had a follow-up meeting in early 2019 that I attended, and I was able to speak with the township trustees. There were a lot of promises made by the property owner that have not been fulfilled, but these promises were made to Greenfield Township. A couple of things come to mind. The city of Lancaster objected to this development.
Yes.
Not only did the city of Lancaster object to this development, but the Fairfield County Regional Planning Commission objected to this development. Greenfield Township trustees decided, which they have a right to do, it's their township, that they would approve it regardless of the recommendations for the city or the county. When I attended the meeting, I was able to speak. A couple promises were made by the property owner that were not legitimate promises. He promised to maintain the roadway. The revised code does not allow him to maintain that roadway unless it's a public roadway. I brought this to the township commissioners' attention, and the township trustees, I should say, attention, and they decided they were going to accept it as a public roadway. So it should be known that a public roadway, which we have in the city, cannot connect with a private roadway. So the commissioners solved that problem by accepting it as a dedicated roadway, a public roadway. So that cul-de-sac is a public roadway in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code. Therefore, they had to do some improvements on that typically wouldn't be done for a private drive. As Councilman Teener said, there's several things that are taking place up there that hopefully Greenfield Township trustees have the same concerns we have. It is right beside a school. It is right beside a house. So, the residents are speaking clearly, and I understand the concerns. As noted, the city of Lancaster objected to this from the beginning. I think many of us object to it now, but it is a political subdivision that we have no control over, other than voicing our opinion, which we have certainly done and can continue to do. But Greenfield Township can still approve things without any input, recommendations, or oversight, or even concerns by us. So it's unfortunate, but, you know, the recommendation I made was go out to 158. The property owner says it cost me too much, I'm not gonna do it. And Greenfield Township said, okay, we'll let you connect to this roadway. We as a city, according to my research, cannot exclude other political subdivisions from connecting to our roadways as long as they do it with a proper public roadway. Otherwise, you'd have cities setting up blockades to keep one community out of the other community, and it's just not the way the state works, and, you know, although in some cases we might want that, but we're kind of limited here. So the concerns are legitimate. We're in a very difficult spot. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McDaniel. Yes, Mr. Stowe.
Don, may I ask you a couple questions? Since you seem to have researched this pretty well, or been, do you know when this plat plan was approved?
Late 2018 was the final approval, and they did everything in accordance with the revised code as far as notification. They sent letters to the adjacent property owners. They posted signage. At least my research indicates they did. They may not have notified as many people as we would have liked, but according to our city engineers, they notified the necessary parties that were involved. And some of those parties who object now did not object then.
Yeah, no, the other part of my question to you is, does it call out in this, when they approve this plat, of the barrier between the units and the properties, the adjoining properties or adjacent properties?
I believe that was more discussion than any kind of requirement. Unlike us, Greenfield Township doesn't have a planning commission. They rely on Fairfield County Regional Planning. Well, they rejected the recommendations from Fairfield County Regional Planning and approved it anyway. So some of those ideas that were expressed by neighbors and other concerned parties came from the Regional Planning Commission who had suggestions in there. But Greenfield Township didn't incorporate those things into their resolution or their passage of this particular item.
I have one final question for the Service Safety Director. Does the road that is connecting to it from Greenfield Township, is it structurally as we would expect it to be? And if it's not, is that a way that we can close off the road?
So we have our road,
Well, I
and
know
right at
ours
our
is-
line,
Yeah.
and then we actually tried to oppose it from engineering, legal. I mean, we were, as you said, Councilman, we did oppose it up there, but we had no legal right to prevent them from using that road. We tried every recourse, so we don't have anything, I mean, to say it's to our level, I can't say that. I don't know what Greenfield Township requires of that road, but it is a cul-de-sac down there, an extension into a cul-de-sac, and then the buildings are off to the right from that cul-de-sac. And I think the issue is they're planning on building more, if I
To
recall.
the left also, that's why they've
Closer to
got
the
all the
school.
aprons
Yeah, there's a
already cut.
small section. I'm looking at my GIS map, and I was showing you about that, but we don't have any say of what that road has to be. It just has to be a public road.
So as long as they've accepted it as a public road, then it's a public road, period.
We stop our snowplow right at our line.
Well, no, I understand that, and we
Stuff
should.
Right into the cul-de-sac.
We can't block it with snow, but we, you know. I
The blade
know
just
what
wouldn't
you're
work,
saying.
but.
Yeah, it just stopped working. I don't know what happened.
You know, so, no, I was just looking to see if there was a requirement that it be, you know, that's the whole reason between private road and public road. There are certain, you know, engineering of that road that makes it a public road versus a private road. So that's why I was asking to see if there's any way that disqualifies it from connecting to ours as a public road when it doesn't meet, you know, the requirements as a public road.
At that time, no, it didn't. It just met every requirement. Believe me, our city engineer, we were very, very passionate to oppose this in so many ways. I think we thought about every possible way we could and got assistance from our legal counsel as well. So I don't think it's the right thing for this area at all. It disappoints me greatly, but we tried.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Don. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniel, are the township trustees the same today as they were in 2018, do you know?
Yes, I believe they
All
are.
three of them are?
And I will tell you that feedback from the neighbors on the Nextdoor app, the township trustees have been very open as far as their meetings, and this time around, they've spoken at length with several residents. They seem to be more sympathetic than they were before. I don't know what their decision's ultimately going to be, but I'm hearing pretty good feedback about the interactions between the community and Greenfield Township trustees. I think everyone learned a little bit about, neighbors really close to us. Maybe we should pay attention to their public meetings and know what's going on. I mean, I have to admit, I had no clue that they were building those storage units up there until I get a call from a neighbor saying, hey, you might want to come to a public hearing on such and such a date. They had literally already made their decision, already approved it. We were going in hopes to get them to reconsider. And one of the things I mentioned that they could have reconsidered was the public roadway, because they specifically said they were not going to approve it as a public roadway. It had to be private. I brought it to their attention, and they made a motion on the floor to accept it as public roadway right then and there. So I was kind of surprised by that they would do that so quickly without any research and the cost it might involve. But they chose to approve that from the floor that day I was at that meeting.
Very good. All right, Ms. Tina, we'll come back to you if there's no one else who hasn't yet spoken on this who would like to. Okay, go ahead.
So as in for the public hearing, as far as I know, they weren't noted. There was a sign out there that's posted, and I don't think that the neighbors had been notified this time. Because I went out there Saturday, there was a sign that's posted, and that was I believe, if I recall, that's kind of what surprised people, because they didn't know there was a sign posted. And they were like, I believe something was said to the effect of they didn't have to be notified. The other thing was when it was gone ahead and we were told by the neighbor, I believe it was Saturday, that when they went ahead and built more units, they here, you owe us $8,000 type thing. It was like, you paid us money because, you shouldn't have done it, but here you go. They felt like fined them instead of made them take it out. So that was kind of from what the neighbor said. So, that's a problem. I mean, it's like, you're not allowed, but go ahead, but because this is what's gonna, they don't hold anybody's feet to the fire. And it's not doing our residents any good.
Very good. Any further discussion about this or any other unfinished business? Okay, is there any new business tonight? Yes, Ms. Tina.
This is kind of fun. Mr. James ran the 5K in pouring down rain, the Kiwanis, and he came in first.
Congratulations.
But
In your age group, yeah. I wasn't gonna add it.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I was in his age group, but I just wanted to know, it was pouring down rain. I was very concerned, tried to talk him out of it because I didn't want him to fall, and he asked me to go, but I didn't have the right tennis shoes, so I didn't go.
That's why I didn't do it. I didn't have the right tennis shoes.
Well, if you see me running, there's a problem.
Yeah, it's all about the shoes. I'm
Really
not sure
bad
I've run
happening.
5K in my life, let alone all
But
at
he
once.
got a medal and all that good stuff, so.
That's great. Congratulations, Mr.
And I had
James.
to take a nap after that.
That's all right.
Heck, yeah.
All right, is there any other new business this evening? If not, we'll ask that the clerk read our announcement of scheduled meetings.
Next regular meeting is May 9th. The meeting following is May 23rd. Both meetings here in council chambers at 6:30 PM. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days. Law Committee, May 4th at 11:30 a.m. in the 1897 conference room. Code Enforcement, May 9th at 7:30 a.m. at the 1897 conference room. Finance, May 9th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Water Pollution Control, May 11th at 8:30 at the 1897 conference room. That meeting was originally scheduled for 8, but all meetings forward are at 8:30. Economic Development, May 19th at 7:30 a.m. at the 1897 conference room. And the IT Telecom, May 20th at 7:30 a.m. at the 1897 conference room.
Thank you very much. Are there any bills this evening?
There's one bill for $350.40 payable to PNC for publications of legislation in the MNCO paper. I do expect one from Proforma, but I don't have that amount yet, so I'll read that at the next meeting.
Very good.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bill.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pay the bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I know of no need for an executive session, therefore a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion. We adjourn.
Motion and second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned. Please remember to sign your legislation.